Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Hope you guys are staying cool out there.
Super cool. Hope you're staying super cool.
So we see this. There's so much going on. We're gonna just kind of like flow through this because there's so much going on out there. Doomsday Glacier teetering at edge of collapse. So scientists are saying that Antarctica's so-called Doomsday Glacier is just at the brink. And can you imagine what it would do if the sea level rose by 6 to 9 feet? When so many areas in Florida are below that, just for instance, how about New Orleans and Louisiana? Very, very low. I mean, across the globe, there are cities, because everybody, for the most part, most people do love to live on the water. It's either water people or mountain people. But those that, are willing to live by the water, well, we're seeing that water can be very dangerous. And even if it's not water along the coast, just with rivers, well, the flooding, as we're going to be taking a look at. But the Antarctic melt is concerning scientists. And if it did trigger a collapse across the western half of Antarctica, global seas would raise by 6 to 9 feet. If the eastern half went, it'd be way worse than that, guys. Way worse than that.
I'm really having a hard time wrapping my head around this.
Yeah, well, again, get the boats ready. Just get the boats ready. And talking about the heat, in July, an all-time heat record smashed in Texas, New Mexico, searing heat to return this weekend to the Midwest as well as the East. Boy, it is toasty out there. How about 128 degrees in Death Valley? You know, the overnight low was 100.
Well, yeah, it's getting better.
Getting better. Getting better. I mean, 128 for your high, and then you're looking for a break at night, and you get 100. Yeah. Wow. So the South is going to be baking as well. I mean, pretty much the whole country when you get down to it. The extremes, that's what we get, and that's what we get when we have a magnetosphere that's declining. And yes, I still can't believe that there was actually somebody that said, the magnetosphere is not declining. Get a bucket of ice, quick. Check out these temps. Roswell 111, Lubbock 110, Amarillo 110, Borger 116, Del Rio 112, San Antonio 107. Texas is baking. Yeah, it is for sure. We know we're talking to friends and family over there. It's not easy. It is not easy as we see the excessive warnings, the watch, and the heat advisory there in Texas. And looking at these temps, I mean, you kind of expect it in Phoenix. Their average high is 106. They're running like 110, 111. I think 116 was the high that they're going to be seeing thereabouts. El Paso as well, San Antonio. In the west, it is baking. Look at that heat dome expanding there. And this is the temperature outlook. And I know there's a lot of people across the country that would like a breath of cool Canadian air to come down.
Oh, God. The chill feels so good.
Especially for sleeping. How could you sleep in 100 degrees overnight with no AC? And keep that in mind, too, because at some point, maybe sooner than later, the grid is going to be going down. And so is it survivable where you are, whether it's the heat or the cold? And so this is our electroverse, and it's talking about the grand solar minimum and the swings. And boy, do we have swings. From one thing to another. We have so much flooding going on, and we have tremendous drought going on. And everything in between. It's just wild. But again, it has to do with the changing jet stream. And, this also is a recipe for violent storms, massive hail, incredible winds. It's part of the times that we find ourselves in, guys. And that's, one of the reasons why things are so interesting, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting these days.
Yeah, another fireball. And they're saying it's a meteor. They say it disintegrates in the sky over Sydney. Some of the people that watched it didn't think it was a meteor. They didn't know what it was. But very curious. One lady was saying it's a plane going down. And there's videos here for you guys to check out. What was your impression, Cindy?
Well, I got that it was Pleiadian, and that was an accident that they saw what they saw.
Interesting. So there's a lot of videos here. Check it out. We've had so many of these events, so many of them. Talking about hail, Armenia bombarded by hail. Another freak. Look at this hailstorm. Wow. I mean, thank goodness he's got a boat to bail that person out of the car. I'm sure that would be quite uncomfortable if you had to go swimming and sloshing through that. Of course, we've seen so many people swept away as well. And I think it's an understatement to say the weather's getting crazy around the world. And there's videos there for you guys as well. And lots of quakes up in Iceland. Look for eventually probably either a very, very large quake or a series of volcanic eruptions, more than likely. Of course, there are a lot of volcanoes over there. It's a very, very active area. 13,000 quakes in 3 weeks. That's the biggest seismic unrest in more than 40 years. So we're keeping our eye up there, most definitely. 13,000. Of course, you're talking very, very minor ones, but still. This is portending that something is coming. And most definitely volcanic activity is heating up around the world. 39 erupting volcanoes and hundreds of quakes hitting near or under lava craters. And so you can see the unrest around the globe. And again, this is because the magnetosphere is in decline and because more energy is coming through. Neutrinos, cosmic rays are coming through. They're interacting with the core of the Earth. As above, so below, as within, so without. And, it is all interconnected. This is one series of interconnected events. And then, of course, we have the manufactured element as well, which we know. I mean, there is such a thing as, that instrument that the angels play up in Alaska, if you know what I mean, as well as other locations around the globe, as well as an interesting Tesla tower. I wonder what they're doing with that in Texas that our doctor friend in Texas sent us. Really, there's so much technology. We talked about Tesla's earthquake machine. You got to wonder. You got to wonder what is part of the natural processes of the grand solar minimum and the magnetic pole reversal and what is part of mankind's efforts. But things are heating up.
Absolutely. This is insanely interesting.
Strombolian activity at Pacaya, ash and lava flow observed. This is in Guatemala, and this is, again, more of that volcanic activity. And we have tremendous sargassum invasion in the Caribbean. As you see some of these pictures, it's just seaweed everywhere you could see. And this is Antigua. Beautiful place. Absolutely beautiful. It's just that definitely not only spoils the amazing views and one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Again, it's not good for the fish, and it can definitely impact the O2 levels. Even as it says here, sometimes it could actually stop the propellers from going. And it's just another sign of the times. So talking about the floods, we got at least 15 dead, 4,000 affected. Flash floods. This is in Indonesia.
That just looks really, really sad. These people's livelihoods, they're just changed forever.
Well, I mean, there's so many people without homes because their homes have swept away. Crops, lost. I was reading about one farmer who was saying he lost more than 50% of his crops, and he was complaining about the amount of support from the government. But of course, the governments around the world are getting hit with all sorts of stuff. We also had the plague upon the land. Let's not forget about that as well. As you see people wading through the water there. In Bangladesh, we see more than 1 million people fleeing as second wave of flooding hits Bangladesh. And next time we have a live, we have to talk to Brother Asaduzaman. He's over in Bangladesh. 7 million people affected. Again, I mean, these scenes we're seeing all around the globe. It's adding to the crop losses. As you see, a third of Bangladesh is underwater after heavy rains.
We hope you're okay, Brother Asaduzaman.
And this is Assam, India. And here the statement is, pray for Assam. And basically they were talking about also how so much attention is being placed on the plague part of things, and people are not getting the relief they need, the help they need when it comes to the flood situation. So many people, again, no homes and crops lost. As you see here, 3.3 million people affected in 28 districts. Assam has seen a lot of floods, but the severity and occurrence of floods are increasing. And all we hear is so-and-so got affected, infected, whatever. Insignificant news. Meanwhile, people are just buried in the water. And over here we see heavy rain triggers a dam collapse, sweeping away several buildings in Russia.
It's really sad. I mean, it's almost like Mother Earth's water has broken.
Well, it is. It's the birth pangs, right? I mean, it's biblical. It's birth pangs of the new age coming. Monsoon-related natural disasters leave more than 144 dead or missing in just 1 month in Nepal. So again, this is all over the place that we see landslides, just water everywhere, and landslides in northeastern Turkey as well. Of course, the flash floods triggered it. And that's a very active seismic zone too, with a lot of structures that are prone to collapse during a bigger earthquakes there. And then if you have the ground all saturated like that, it's definitely not a good recipe there, as you see these cars buried. And the death toll from record-breaking rains hit 68 in Japan and Kyushu, as again we see houses just underwater. And we've seen so many people rescued from their rooftops. And then, of course, we have China, and it's just still ongoing. Heavy rainfalls you have affecting nearly 500,000 residents, and this is over in Anqing province. And there's video as well. China's been just devastated. Yangtze River saw its second highest day of rainfall in 50 years. 28,000 homes damaged, 141 people dead or missing. And when you have all this going on, it leads to desperation. Desperate leadership, a desperate attempt to get whatever type of resources you can for your people, which, in these times, as our dear brother David over at DAP 2030 is always saying, this leads to the collapse of empires and wars. It's just part of what happens when we see all this going down at the same time. So the Earth will be home to 8.8 billion souls in 2100. That's less. They were calling for over 10 billion. So a new study shows 2 billion fewer than current UN projections. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Things that make you go,
And jumping back to China, this is a 700-year-old Buddhist temple that's standing up to the rainwaters right now. So good construction, but you got to think, okay, wait a minute. That was built 700 years ago, and look at it. It's like it's in the middle of a river. Yeah. So, I don't think that we've had floods like this then in the last 700 years in this location. I think that would be safe to deduce, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They had no idea this would happen, I don't think.
So that, again, shows the severity of the times. And when we got the locusts. And China also is facing a disaster between now and September with the giant plague of locusts, which are also going all over, the globe. And so, again, adding to what we are talking about. And Cape Town, South Africa, dam levels increased by 9.2% after back-to-back cold fronts. So we have a little bit of good news here because they were in a water crisis, and it's actually improving somewhat. So, you might get these sweet spots. Things get a little bit better in a particular area for a while. But for the most part, it's just one extreme to another. And we see a sea foam apocalypse, and that's also down there. And kind of gross looking. Not sure I'd want to be buried in that.
That's really gross.
And bubonic plague in Colorado. So we have a squirrel tested positive. We were talking about plague over in Mongolia, and I saw where a young man caught it. So that's something people are worried about. Obviously, we've had enough plague upon the globe already. So this is from Morrison, Colorado, in Jefferson County, which is just west of Denver. So most definitely another thing to keep an eye out for. Mysterious red sky, strange glowing lights over Villa Hermosa in Mexico. And they call these sprites. And, they have all these terms that the scientists will give us. Oh, those are sprites. That's all it is. Not in lucent clouds. No big deal. But is it something more? Isn't it a sign of perhaps, an environment going kind of crazy, or perhaps signs of other types of life? Or what's your thoughts?
Well, we have these columns of light inside of us that are like that inside of our bodies. So, yeah.
Isn't that curious? Look at those. It's just a normal natural phenomenon. Nothing to see here. Move along, move along. And we have a giant Templar crop circle appears overnight in France. And I've heard it said that a lot of crop circles come from the Arcturians.
I could believe that.
So that's a giant Templar sign in there. So, did a bunch of guys go in there and stomp it in that beautiful formation? Did the Illuminati do this? Or is this some sort of signal from ET, from perhaps the Arcturians or the Pleiadians, trying to say, hey guys, this is a clue for what to look for next?
Mm-hmm. I do believe that's a galactic sign for sure.
Very, very interesting times we are in. And 5 signs that the U.S. is on the brink of collapse. In case you guys haven't noticed, division without calls for unity. Well, we've seen that. But you know what? I think, too, that as we were talking about, I feel like the plans of the dark side are not working out as well as they anticipated. I really think there were those that wanted to create even more chaos, not to mention that obviously there's chaos. But I think they were envisioning even more chaos than what we have, which lends us to be very, very cautious for, another FF having to do with, that word that you could use a synonym like a banner, a fake banner, if you know what I mean. Something like that. Potential economic collapse. Well, when everything is shut down forever, for almost, might be mostly shut down for the better part of a year, hard to imagine not having an economic collapse. The inequality gap, which is only increased after each presidency, one after another, it just continues to grow. Food and shelter insecurities, well, we have, just from the earth changes alone, we have tons of people that are getting displaced. Not to mention, obviously the plague, as well as other things going on. Of course, people can't, I saw, 28 million people might be evicted because they couldn't pay their rents or mortgages. That's part of everything that's going on. And then will the November election even happen? When we had Hillary Clinton making a statement the other day, too, that she doesn't know if President Trump, if he loses, is really going to leave, is what she said. So they're sowing the seeds, guys. Really clear, they're sowing the seeds.
Absolutely, dropping those seeds so that get us thinking. Predictive programming.
Yep. So then we won't be completely shocked when, the unthinkable happens. Thank you guys so much for your support at Patreon and also at Ko-Fi. There's different levels there with different benefits that come through on Patreon and Ko-Fi. We could do the same thing, and we couldn't do it without you guys. I think the bottom line is, prepare for the worst, hope and pray for the best, and support each other.
Definitely. We want to say a special thanks to Juliana and Ham37. Thank you. God bless and namaste.
God bless, guys. Namaste.